So I was here last year for the first time. I think it was the initial conference last year, and it gave me a lot of positive impulses on DevOps, especially on the cultural changes, mindset changes, because that was one of our major concerns, being in a very early stage of the transformation. And I got a lot of positive input from that, and took a lot of technical, but also process topics back. And I thought it was a very good idea to come back. And what really stood out for me yesterday was the talk from the ING guys from the Netherlands, because we're in a very similar position. We're a very large corporate within the middle of the transition to a DevOps infrastructure. And so I could really feel that they were having similar problems than we are having. And so I think it was really delighting to see how they went through that path. And that is what I was really looking for, to get more success stories from other large companies, and that worked really well with them. And obviously the technical talks were really good. Just Scott this morning was really good. So just to see what is out there, different tools, tool chains, processes, how people collaborate together, because we are working across the globe, and so it's also very important for us to get a feeling how other companies are tackling that.
My name is Jana and I'm an IT chapter lead. We work according to the Spotify model, so that means that I'm sort of a team lead. I'm responsible for the HR of 7 people in my team, and I also join the efforts of our squad. And I basically have to do what my product owner tells me.
Oh yeah, that's me. Yeah, my name is Robin. I used to be an operations engineer for mobile banking before I became a site reliability engineer, and now I'm the product owner, so I'm responsible for what the team is producing. That's 4 products.
Yeah. Click.
Stop.
It stopped.
Fix it, Jana.
Yeah, it's on. So we are a global financial organization, and we are also active in Australia. We have over 35 million customers, but the biggest chunk of our customer base is actually in the Netherlands, where our bank is from. We actually offer our banking services to more than half of the population in the Netherlands, and thus we are the biggest bank there. ING Direct in Australia actually is, from what I have heard, mostly a secondary bank for their customers, but in the Netherlands we are primary bank for most of our customer base, and we offer all kinds of services in addition to the digital ones. So just to get an idea of the products we actually use in the Netherlands, and those are mobile banking and internet banking. So when we are on trains in the Netherlands, we often see this screen of our mobile banking app. It's used by 3.5 million customers who log in quite a lot to check their balance every day. Internet banking is used by slightly more people, but it's used less often. So we see that the traffic of our transactions have moved, the majority of it has moved to our mobile banking. We have a lot of machines over 2 data centers, both in the Netherlands. Our application landscape is quite complex. Our bank has 10 years ago was part of a merger of 2 other banks in the Netherlands. And we have all kinds of technology, from polymer on the newer front ends to mainframe and HP non-stops and everything in between.
Which is quite challenging.
Yeah, it can be quite challenging to SRE with such a landscape.
Yeah, and it's good to know in the Netherlands we have like 17 million people living, and yeah, with 8 million customers, we have the biggest chunk of customers. So it's quite a large number.
Yeah, and if we have an outage, we end up in the daily news.
Yeah.
Which happened yesterday.
Yeah, we make yeah, that says something about our work, right? So yeah, why do we need to improve our reliability? Well, we built all kind of cool features. I think we built the coolest features of all banks in Holland. But like the first talk today with Jamie, cool features are cool if they're there, but if they're not there, they're not so cool. So we show you this graph, and it shows you 2 bars, and it says something about availability of doing a payment transaction. as a retail customer or as a small business customer. The left one says something about doing a payment through web, and the right one will say something about doing a payment through the mobile banking app. And it's divided in three. The lower part, it's green, says something about availability, so the availability percentage of these channels. The middle part says something about unavailability due to change. And the upper one, the red one, says something about unavailability due to incidents. And as you see, we're not talking 4 nines or 5 nines. We only have 2. So we're not as good as Google or something. No, we're not quite that far. And this was mainly the reason to start site reliability engineering within ING. But also our regulator demands a higher availability. I guess this year they will demand a 99.8% availability, and we're not there, as you see. Click.
Yeah.
Oh. So, oh yeah. When we started, yeah, we've seen you have to start somewhere, and we've looked to all challenges most DevOps teams are faced with for their reliability. So we had a centralized monitoring solution based on Graphite, Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana, and it wasn't performing very well. Sometimes it was behind like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, so you couldn't rely on it for your real-time monitoring. And teams were not in control of this monitoring system because it was maintained by a centralized team. So we saw it as an issue. Oh, it works. So we had a centralized alerting system, which was a very basic form of alerting. It just said something about an application being down and up. And, but once it fired an alert, it went through an old chain of applications until it ended up at the master control room, which is kind of a knock for us. And once the alert ended up at the master control room, there was an operator sitting there, finding the alert, looked for the working instruction made by the DevOps team, and the most working instruction contained a phone number to call. So it ended up calling the responsible engineer. And we measured on 2017, and it took an average of 69 minutes before an alert ended up at the responsible engineer. And this was measured on our major incidents. So that wasn't quite good. But yeah, the slide with the bars about availability said something about availability to our end customers. So something about the business functionalities. And we do measure availability for our end customers, but we're not measuring the availability on the different components in a chain that delivers a functionality to the end customer. And this is because we have a lack of white box monitoring, and we saw it as an issue, because you hardly can't do any error budgeting without knowing what the availability is of a component. So I told you about the alerting and the 69 minutes on average, yeah, the alert ends up at an engineer, and once you get an alert, and I myself was on call for 5 years for the most important channels. Yeah, well, it's horrible to be waking up at night, right? If you got an incident, but you wake up. You grab your laptop, you're going to fix it, or you either go to a war room, which we do, and you're going to fix it with other cool engineers, and you're all proud, and yeah, next day you come to work, and someone will tell you, oh yeah, that issue, yeah, I had the same last week. That's horrible, right? Actually, we still do have this kind of incident that occur multiple times. On the 2nd of January, we had an incident, and I'm doing a postmortem on it right now. And well, the 2nd of January, there was an incident about listing your balance, which is kind of important if you're a bank. And especially on the 2nd of January, which is the moment you wake up from your New Year's Eve, or the day after the New Year's Eve, and you want to know what the damage is, and you can't. It's horrible. And I've seen it before. I saw the incident, I said, oh, this is familiar. And we had the same incident 6 months ago. So reason enough to take on the post-mortem process. And perhaps this is something terrible as well. Yeah.
Perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah, well, I know for sure. We're a financial company, so we have regulators that demand that we prove that we're in control. And we're doing that by filling out documents, dozens of them. And it eats up your time. And we had incredible engineers at ING, and they left because of this. So what we try to do is site reliability engineering. We try to reduce the toil that people are working on. And we're trying to do that by automation.
Yeah, so within the domestic bank of the Netherlands, thanks. We started working in the Spotify model with BizDevOps about almost 3 years ago, actually. We work in tribes, and the tribes have squads with both dev engineers, ops engineers, but also product managers or any other person from the business side. Together they form tribes if you have multiple squads, and the tribes are based around groupings of products, basically. So we have a mortgages tribe or a securities tribe or payments. I think we have about 13 of those. The people who work in tribes, just to give you an idea of the size that that our team actually works for, I think there are about 3,000 people in the tribe population, of which 1,700 are engineers. And we are a team of 7 outside of that organization. So like Jamie explained how it works at Google, we are also outside of the rest of the organization. That means that we don't have conflict with business interest, which is quite nice. So it doesn't occur that we have to stop working on improving reliability because a customer functionality has to go live. And it means that our only focus is to support the rest of the organization. 7 against 1,700 engineers can be tricky. That's why we're not on call. There's no way we can know better about the application landscapes than the responsible squads themselves. Yeah, that's what we do basically. To go a bit further into what we actually do day to day, this is the service reliability hierarchy, which is also in the O'Reilly book. And it describes what goes into making a service reliable. The monitoring is its foundation. So if you don't know if your service is running or not, you cannot change anything about the reliability of your software in general. This is followed by incident response. So once you know your service is running or not, you can respond to the incident, and then you can start learning from it, and it goes further up until you can do reliable product launches at scale. We like to use this hierarchy because it helps us in explaining to the rest of the organization what we actually work on. We've had quite some reliability initiatives at ING, and it helps us in defining how we're different from those previous initiatives. And it helps us stress the importance of engineering. So what do we actually do? Is we build tooling for the BizDevOps squads. At the moment we focus on Prometheus. With Prometheus we enable the white box monitoring Robin was talking about. And we also ensure that alerts can go directly to the teams instead of to a master control room, which will save a lot of time in the meantime to repair. And one of our SREs has also worked on a traffic modeling application based on the Prometheus and based on Prometheus and its metrics, which is also quite nice. So this is our main focus for now, and we feel like this half year we're probably going to shift a little bit more to incident response as well. So that is related to ChatOps, which I believe there's a talk about tomorrow. Where we focus on provisioning Mattermost as a platform. Like Robin said, we also do some post-mortems. Our senior management knows we're there and support us fully, and they ask us for our help when there's a big incident reoccurring or when something's wrong. And we also help others with choosing their monitoring needs. And lastly, we also educate others. A lot of people in our company don't know what SRE actually is. We do large demos or monthly demos for the entire population in our organization, so people know how they can find our products and what we're there for. We develop training materials. We do onboarding workshops. We try to spread the reliability mindset as much as possible through contact moments, seeing how we can get the best percentage of people in our organization there. We also have other SRE teams within ING. In the Netherlands, there's also teams for the wholesale banking side and for infrastructure. Together, we have guilds to facilitate collaboration. And if other teams or tribes are considering starting an SRE team or something similar, we help them out as well. Like I said before, we are not on call, unlike Google. The past few years at ING, we spend a lot of time, like even before starting with DevOps, we spend a lot of time on getting people to the responsibility of being on call. And the core message of our transformation always was that you have to be responsible for your services end to end. So it would be kind of weird if we would suddenly start with SRE and take on that responsibility for the teams. Also, I can never solve an incident of another engineer in any team. And I would hate it if I would be that engineer to have someone mess up my code at night and return to the office and be like, what happened here?
So, our main purpose as a team is to reduce the mean time to repair. And one of the first challenges of our team was to create white box monitoring that's in control for teams. So we create a monitoring provisioning pipeline for teams to use. And what they will get is Prometheus, an alert manager, and Prometheus. Anyone familiar with Prometheus? Awesome. Prometheus is, for the others, Prometheus is a time series database with an alert functionality. It's quite powerful and scalable. And what we do is we want every team to have their own Prometheus stack. So we'll provide them with something we call Reliability Toolkit. Within the Reliability Toolkit, there's Prometheus Alert Manager, Grafana, and the model builder that Jana was talking about, which gives them the capability to turn every metric in Prometheus into a model. So you could do kind of anomaly detection based on any metric. So it pulls out a metric from Prometheus, calculates a model, and puts it back as time series within Prometheus. We try to what we try to do is that we have like the 4 golden signals in place for teams, so that they could monitor the saturations, the error, latency, and traffic. And we do that by providing like the Call It D metric on every system, so the Call It D plugin on any VM we have. And what we do is we incorporate the client libraries of Prometheus in largely used frameworks, which we use in ING to build applications. So if a team will onboard, they will get like 5 machines, 1 test machine, 2 acceptance, and 2 production machines next to their application service. And yeah, that's what they get. And once they use the framework, they will have their 4 golden signals in place immediately. So it's easy to use, and they will have like this medium-high level of monitoring in place. And so we try to make it easy. But the machines that we provision to them remain ours and in our control. And that's because I've told you about the the controls we need to prove to our regulators. And yeah, it's a big toil for teams. And by being owning the service that we provision, we are responsible for these controls. So we do that for the teams. And we're not doing the manual work, we all automate it, and we did it once. and the teams don't have to do it anymore. This is our way to reduce the toil for the teams using our monitoring stack. Once they use our monitoring stack, they have 3 alert channels pre-configured. One for SMS, which is kind of important to us because that's our main channel for sending alerts. Mail, most of the times for the less important alerts. And MetaMos. And MetaMos is the application we use for cherubs, or what we want to use for cherubs.
Yeah, so we figured we would close with some learnings after 2 years of doing SRE. We started 2 years ago with a pilot phase, actually, which is a nice way of testing if a new way of working fits for you. And after half a year, we decided to continue. So I will explain something about the people side of things, as I'm the chapter lead, and then Robin will go over process and technology. So when it comes to staffing, and Jamie talked about this a little bit as well, is what we've experienced is that like an engineer can be so good at his or her technology of choice, but if that engineer cannot spread a reliability mindset or does not have the proper mindset, him or herself, it might be difficult for your SRE team to truly make an impact in the organization. So within our team, we have people who have been on call for years and who really want to make a change to make life for engineers and our customers better. And I think if they wouldn't have that, we wouldn't make impact at all. Some of the other SRE teams within ING don't have a product owner, but what we've experienced is that we actually, we of course have a product owner, but it works well for the team as well because of the 50% of engineering that SREs actually have to do according to theory. And our SREs cannot do that if they also have to spread the SRE mindset and our products in the organization, or if lots of stakeholders come to them with their problems. So that's why we're very happy with the construction of both product owner and chapter lead, since we take away most of that work for the engineers in the team so they can spend most of their time coding. Another point about staffing is well, you have to see what works well for your organization in terms of new and existing hires. If you have an organization that champions people who come from other organizations and take on their knowledge from there to yours, and people accept that pretty well, then that of course works great. What we've seen is that we've had some existing hires, and I hired engineers who are already well known within the organization and who had already earned a lot of respect by developing monitoring tooling for other teams. That helps so much because more people will come to your team for advice and they will take your team even more seriously as well. What we've also done, and I think there was a question about that after Jamie's talk, is we started doing an SRE internship, or there was a question about graduates and SRE. Another SRE team within ING actually hires graduates on a rotating basis. They take the graduate on for half a year, so that person becomes more familiar with reliability engineering. And what we actually are doing right now is that we asked someone from the product tribes to join us for half a year. So someone who has experience with monitoring and that type of work and a clear interest in that. That person stays with us for half a year, and then she will move back to her tribe, also to hopefully spread SRE love even more.
So, like Jana already told you, we started out with a 6-month trial or a test phase, and that's very good to learn what SRE really is, and to decide if it's something that fits within your company. So have a vision on your definition as SRE. What we see within an organization is that a lot of SRE teams are starting and they are struggling on what SRE exactly is and what they need to be doing. We see that senior management has some kind of demands on these kind of SRE teams as well. And we think that's very important to learn what SRE is as a team, and to explain as a team to other teams what SRE is, and help other SRE teams to start up.
Yeah, and I think it's good to mention that if you, when Robin says that the senior management put some demand on those teams, is that some senior managers actually think that we're some sort of, that we actually have to approve everyone's code if it's reliable enough, and we're some sort of police force who's going to check if everyone's reliable. And we actually don't believe that that's the way to go. We like to make awesome products and deliver good advice and have people come to us. And we have to be very strict about not going into that role of, hi, I'm here and I'm going to talk to you about reliability and you have to do whatever I say, because that probably won't work.
Although I would like to have a uniform. So, yeah, we created a roadmap as a team. Although I'm the product owner, I don't see myself as the one that decides what we are doing as a team. We decided as a team, and I'm responsible for the decision of the team. So I defend the opinion of the team to the senior management. And by doing this, you get a great commitment from the team itself. The first steps designing our roadmap we did during a conference called SRE-Con. This was the Europe one, and which was quite interesting. And it's quite good to learn from online resources and these kind of conferences. And by doing that as a team, we have the same vision and the same inspiration at the same time, and that makes it very easy to create a great roadmap. Prepare to spend time. Yeah, like Jana said, we spent time on giving demos, giving talks like this, going to teams. Actually, we spoke at Velocity, and there were a couple of our colleagues from the mobile banking department. And basically what they told us afterwards was that they find it kind of silly to go all the way to Velocity London to learn what their SRE team is doing. And they're sitting like 2 blocks away from us.
Yeah. Yeah, so even when you think you're spending a lot of time communicating your message, it might not be the case. And then some people in our team say, well, of course, they just have to stop by and not complain so much. Yeah. But I don't think that's the case. If you want people to use your products and your services, well, then we definitely did not spend enough time doing that.
True, true. And what we actually did is we worked for a year on our provisioning pipeline, which is a long time. So we made some quick wins as well. And now we have all kind of cool metrics about all applications running just behind our reverse proxy, which is an application of 100 or something. And we could share these metrics about applications with the teams. We could provide them already with metrics and make them really enthusiastic for our monitoring pipeline. Beer o'clock. What we did as a team, we made a reoccurring appointment on every Thursday to do a beer o'clock. And it sounds kind of silly, but it works perfectly to create like this team bond. So try it.
At 5:30 or something, I believe. Well, we usually start at 4, but yeah. I heard here there's drinks at 5:30 or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Why not at 4? Yeah, make it attractive to use your tooling. Although your tooling is quite cool, if you create fancy stuff like our model builder, it's good to make it easy to use for teams. We're even considering to do learnings about Prometheus querying language, for example, and monitoring in general, but also about our stack. And we do onboarding sessions because we would like to have teams using our stuff without having to do a lot of work. And this also takes me to the next point. Productization takes a lot of time. Yeah, it took us a year before we were capable of deploying one application. And well, after the second year, we were capable of deploying the whole toolkit. But even now, we're not really onboarding very fast. And that's because we want to make it more easy for teams and more reliable. Consider scalability and ownership. So We find it very important that teams have their own monitoring solution. So that's a very important scalability reason for us. And but we remain ownership of the servers. So teams don't have to do all this paperwork. 11 minutes, 10 seconds.
Yeah, time for questions. So the first question might take some time to answer. I think with the transformation, when we started doing DevOps, so that's about 5 years ago, I think it actually also started with a lot of people reading the continuous delivery book, right?
Yeah.
Getting people excited about the movement, organizing local DevOps days, sessions like that, and also showing that deployment could be much faster and showing that there's actually was so much to gain by going DevOps. So before we started, I think it sometimes took me 2 days to deploy a service with a lot of manual intervention. But then there was the CD pipeline. It went much quicker, and I was done in half an hour.
Yeah, and we had like a monolith as a web application, and we divided it into small applications, which makes it very easy to keep deploying it.
And cultural changes take a long time, like others have said as well. I think it also really helped having obviously having the dev and the ops people in the same team. Yeah, this is a difficult question to like really pinpoint, so I'm just going to move on to the next one. Do devs have access to production? Sometimes they do.
Yep.
Yeah. We try to adhere to the 4 I's 4I principle. So we don't put that much emphasis on dev versus ops, just as long as there are 2 people who have looked at the code and that the engineer who built it is not the one who deploys it into production.
Yep.
For those who are not Dutch, someone's telling us that she hopes we are enjoying the weather in Melbourne.
It's hot.
It's hot as hell. The sun is so strong. But besides that, it's better than the freezing cold we had. How long did it take you to how long did it take you to convert?
Couple of years.
Couple of years, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It was doing by phase, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We first did DevOps, and then we started doing BizDevOps. I think it took a year or 2 years to go to full DevOps.
Agile Scrum.
Yeah. First Agile Scrum.
Yeah.
Then DevOps, then BizDevOps.
Yep. And now SRE.
Yeah, that's in addition to that. Yeah. So I think it takes a year or 2 years. Oh, that's a question for you.
Well, you're my chapter lead, right? It makes life easier. Like I said, we make a roadmap as a team, and to make decisions, it's fairly easy to be technical, to understand what your team members are talking about, to make your decisions, to know what's possible and what's not possible. So it makes my life very easy. Do they need to be? Well, I don't think so, as long as you trust your team. If you're good engineers, it could be very workable.
If the engineers are outside, the SREs are outside the organization, where do they live? Yeah, sort of in a no man's land. We're often forgotten because we don't have a tribe, so we report to one of the senior IT managers, one step below CIO. We like it there, but it does mean that sometimes we're not included when they organize events for tribes.
Yeah.
But we're not too big on the hierarchical position, so we just do what we do and make it work.
We're invited for the party, so that's okay.
Yeah, so it works. And otherwise, our colleagues from the tribes will tell us, so that's good. Biggest non-technical challenge in introducing SRE? I think reaching 1,700 engineers and making them all excited to use our product.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Me too. Post-mortem process, so the blameless post-mortem part.
Ah, yeah.
It's quite challenging as well. We did a couple of post-mortems with teams, But yeah, hey, the teams are responsible for the services, and they feel responsible. So sometimes they're acting a little bit defensive, especially if their managers are in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, then sometimes it makes it hard to really catch the root cause.
Yeah, definitely, and getting everyone to stay blameless.
Yeah.
BizDevOps in our organization. May I ask who asked the question and what you would like to know? No? Then it can be very... no. Okay, good. How are you preparing for GDPR? That's outside of our scope. I know teams are working to get there, but I am not up to date on what they're actually doing. You? Sorry. STEO. How do you measure mindset at hiring time? Yeah, I think it sort of relates to the internal hiring as well. Yeah. That we hire engineers of which we already know from experience that they have a certain reliability mindset. But it's also just, I think, about asking questions like very open questions on topics like post-mortems. What do you think teams should actually do? What do you like about SRE?
How do you approach teams?
Yeah, as well. Questions like that, yeah. STE. Do you mean, is STE short term? No?
Or is it just a typo for SRE?
Oh, it's probably SRE. Does SRE work for legacy mainframe? In a way, we serve as mainframe as well, because we work for the entire organization, and we have a lot of legacy. With Prometheus, teams actually have to do some work in order for metrics to be scraped. So if there's engineers working on mainframe or any other legacy systems who want to make sure metrics can be scraped, then it definitely works. I also think that the mindset part of reliability, site reliability engineering, and the post-mortem part definitely works for legacy mainframe, because that's, well, I think a lot of themes in SRE are quite universal for all kinds of software and hardware or whatever in between. Oh, question for you.
How does a team of 7 prioritize their work when you support 7 engineers? Well, we try to use the service reliability hierarchy for prioritizing the work, and of course the team's opinion is very important here. And sometimes I make the decision for the team, but it's hardly any time, right? So yeah, basically that. And yeah, and of course we do have stakeholders, which are the senior managers. And,
QBR.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. What we do is we have like this quarterly planning document thingy.
Yeah, quarterly business review it's called. I think it started at Netflix, where you define what the purpose of your team is, and you define what you're going to work on next quarter and what you have delivered the previous quarter. Yeah. We write that as a team, and we present that to our major stakeholders to make sure that we're aligned before we actually start the work. And we can send it out to possible hires as well, which is quite interesting, because then they definitely know what we're working on. Yeah. So that's good.
So again, we do it with the team.
Yeah. Standard tool set, or allowing tribes to choose and support their own tool set. Yeah, we have, besides us, there's teams working on continuous delivery and continuous integration. They're called building blocks teams. They deliver tooling as well. I don't think there's a lot of enforcing going on right now, except for using that CD pipeline. Yeah. We don't like to enforce. I don't think it would be pretty stupid if the teams within the tribes would set up their own CD pipeline, especially if there's one there. There's also standards for the proxies,
Yeah, and we have like API toolkits, and teams could use it, or they could use parts of it, and it makes their life easier. So most of the teams are using it, which makes it easy for us as well, because all our resilience patterns and client libraries we push in the same toolkit, so teams are able to use it.
Yeah. Why is the beer on Thursdays instead of Fridays? Oh, and another one, but in English. Well, we work according to a 4x9 schedule, so we work 36 hours a week. A lot of us are off on Monday or Friday, so that means that Thursday is the last day of the week that we are together as a full team.
Yeah. It's quiet in the bar, so it's good.
But I think for
You started something.
yeah, I noticed. It's hard to see with the blinding lights, so I don't know what actually happened. But I think in the Netherlands, going out for drinks on Thursday is like, yeah, it's like the party day of the week, right? For work-related events, at least. Do you have error budgets across all components a transaction goes through? Yeah, if, we still have to start on error budgets because the people who work on the components don't know their availability number yet. I think that relates to what Jamie told us about the slow. If you cannot define your service level, then it's very difficult to start with error budgeting. So we hope that doing white box monitoring with Prometheus is one of the first steps into getting to such a place. Producing documentation and handovers within the delivery and production teams. Yeah, we're starting that work, actually.
Yeah, well, we already did some work for that.
Yeah.
So we have this control framework with documents called minimum standards. And one of the minimum standards is about operational resilience. And we're actually co-writing this document and actually shrinking the document because there's all kind of controls in it, and we try to get rid of all controls. And if there are any controls in it, we try to make it controls that are automatable.
Yeah, it can be proven with engineering instead of writing a document. So a lot of controls ask for an approval of someone, like an approval of a tribe lead or of a manager or an architect. So we decided with a new version, let's not go for that, but instead focus on measuring availability instead of an architect telling you your design is reliable enough. Stuff like that, but we do that together with our information risk managers. Yeah, I think our time is up.
Yes, thank you.